Welcome back to the Acceptance Project podcast. I'm your host, Bryan. Before we jump into this episode, let me ask you something. If someone looked at you right now, really looked at you, what would they miss? They might see your smile, your job title, the way you hold yourself together in public. What they would not see are the scars. Not the obvious ones you can point to and laugh about at parties, but the quiet ones. The ones that changed how you trust, how you love, how you talk to yourself when no one is listening. We all carry them. Some came from moments that knocked the wind out of us. Others came slowly from years of being told who we were supposed to be or who we were not allowed to be. And somehow we learned to keep moving, even when something inside us was still healing. In this episode, we're talking about scars, the visible ones and the invisible ones. The ones that taught us lessons we never signed up for. Because scars are not signs that something went wrong. They are proof that life showed up unannounced and we survived the encounter. So settle in. Think about the marks you carry, the stories no one asks about, and let's talk about what they have been trying to teach us all along. Scars have a funny way of introducing themselves. The visible ones usually arrive with a story you have rehearsed 100 times. You lift your sleeve, point to the line on your skin, and say something like, "This one was a bike accident," or "That one came from surgery," as if your body were a museum and you were the tour guide. Now imagine I'm 12 years old, and my bike is practically an extension of my soul. My parents, bless their hearts, they're always saying, "Bryan, don't live like Evel Knievel on that thing." But honestly, what do they know? They're just old. But today, my cousins, sister, and I are building the most epic ramp ever constructed from an old piece of plywood and a few broken cement blocks. I eye that jump, my heart pounding like a drum solo. This is it. This is my moment. I push off, pedaling like a maniac, convinced I'm about to fly. The wind is rushing past my ears. The ramp is approaching, and for a split second, I'm airborne. Then, bam, gravity remembers my address. Next thing I know, I'm tangled in spokes, scraped on the gravel, and my knee is screaming in pain. That little line on my knee, pure Evel Knievel ambition, met with cold, hard reality of country road gravel. And now, every time I see someone my age climb a ladder, I instantly think, this is not going to end well. But the older we get, the more we realize the really impactful scars aren't the ones people ask about. They're the quiet ones. The ones tucked away where no one can see. Not on our knees or elbows, but deeper. They're the invisible lines that shape how we trust, how we love, and how we sometimes flinch when a voice gets too loud. Or maybe how we hesitate before celebrating ourselves too loudly. These scars, visible or not, are our own personal roadmap of life's journey. Not a sleek, polished GPS guiding us perfectly, full of wrong turns, roadside breakdowns, breathtaking scenic routes, and those moments where you just had to pull over, shut off the engine, and just breathe in the quietness. It's a wild ride, but it tells the story of us. Physical scars are often our first teachers. They usually show up early in life, right when we're absolutely convinced we're invincible. Superheroes, basically. I remember the sting from a scraped knee with gravel embedded in the skin, the iodine burning like a tiny fire. Or maybe it was that peculiar scar from a childhood surgery. You know, that little zigzag line that felt so dramatic at the time. And who can forget the burn from touching something we were absolutely warned not to touch? Now, if you are of a certain age, then your parents' car most likely had a cigarette lighter built into the dashboard and those tiny ashtrays on the door handles. How many of us carried a small burn circle on one of our fingers after the lighter popped out, indicating it was ready to fire up that cigarette, but instead we decided to touch it and see just how hot it was? These physical scars teach us that pain doesn't mean the end of the story. They're like little badges saying, hey, healing is possible, even when that wound looked like a scene from a horror movie. And they definitely taught us humility, because nothing brings a human down to earth faster than realizing gravity always wins. There's something oddly comforting about a physical scar, isn't there? It whispers, something big happened here, and you didn't just survive it. Your amazing body knew exactly how to mend itself, even if it took time, a lot of rest, and maybe a little tenderness from a parent with a Band-Aid. Then, of course, there are those emotional scars. These are the quiet ones, the ones that don't show up in photos or lighthearted small talk. They come from the sharp edges of heartbreak, the cold shock of betrayal, the hollow ache of abandonment, or the heavy blanket of grief. They're born in moments where words once spoken hung in the air like smoke, impossible to take back, or when love, that warm, comforting presence, simply slipped away in ways you never saw coming. Emotional scars teach us depth. They carve out a space inside of us that understands empathy, because once your own heart has been cracked open, even just a little, you recognize that same raw pain in others without them ever having to explain it. They also teach us caution, a lesson learned the hard way that can protect you one moment, but can also cause us to build walls around ourselves. Still, these scars matter. They whisper a truth. You were brave enough to care, brave enough to feel, even when caring came at a high price. Mental scars ask for patience more than anything else because they rarely announce themselves with a big fanfare. Instead, they quietly slip into your inner dialogue like a persistent whisper you can't quite shake. They show up as that nagging voice that insists you're behind or not good enough, or just one mistake away from everything falling apart. They come from years of relentless stress, repeated criticism that feels like a slow drip, deep trauma, or simply carrying too much for too long without any real relief. These mental scars are often invisible, even to the person carrying them, which is precisely why they're so easy to dismiss. But ignoring them doesn't make them disappear. They don't fade with time alone. They wait, and they usually speak up loudest when we're tired, overwhelmed, or desperately trying to be strong for everyone else. One of the most important lessons mental scars teach us is profound awareness. This is the moment you start truly noticing your inner dialogue and gently ask, is this thought about what's happening right now, or is it an echo from something that happened a long time ago? For example, a simple mistake at work might trigger a flood of self-criticism that feels wildly out of proportion to the situation. That reaction isn't just about the email you forgot to send, it's about old wounds that learn to equate mistakes with danger or rejection. Awareness doesn't mean judging yourself for having these thoughts. It means noticing them with curiosity and saying, this feels familiar. This might be a scar talking. The second lesson, of course, is choice. You may not control the initial thought that shows up, but you absolutely have a say in whether it gets to move in and rearrange all the furniture in your mind. Thoughts are like uninvited guests ringing your doorbell. Some knock politely, others kick the door in. Either way, you get to decide how long they stay. Choosing doesn't mean forcing positive thinking or pretending everything is fine. It means gently challenging the thought instead of automatically believing it. It means asking, is this thought helpful? Is it true? Is it kind? Over time, that pause creates vital space, and in that space, healing truly begins. Now, the third lesson mental scars offer is the absolute necessity of support. Mental scars heal faster and often more completely when they're not carried alone. Therapy, support groups, trusted friends, and community create safe spaces where the immense weight can be set down, even if just briefly. These supports aren't admissions of weakness or failure. They are profound acts of courage. Reaching out says, I value my well-being enough to not do this by myself. If you're trying to help someone with mental scars, the most important thing you can offer is your presence, not pressure. You don't have to pry or force them to open up. A simple, heartfelt, I'm here when you want to talk can mean more than 1,000 questions. Let them move at their own pace. Healing cannot be rushed, but it can be powerfully supported. At the same time, acknowledging mental scars is essential. Sitting on them and hoping they'll just magically go away doesn't work. They won't. Unaddressed mental scars tend to grow deep roots. They quietly but powerfully influence decisions, relationships, and self-worth. Encouragement doesn't mean pushing someone to spill everything before they're ready. It means normalizing help. It means reminding them that needing support is part of being human. Mental scars are not a personal failure. They are a sign that something mattered, that something hurt deeply, and that healing deserves conscious attention. When we treat mental scars with patience, awareness, choice, and support, they stop running the story and start becoming wise guides toward a healthier, more compassionate life. Now, of course, there's humor hidden in scars too, if you just let it in. And most of the time, it only shows up long after the swelling has gone down and the stitches have dissolved. Think about it. How many times were you absolutely convinced in that agonizing moment that this was it. This injury, this colossal mistake, this utterly embarrassing incident was going to ruin your life, your face, or at the very least, your carefully constructed reputation. And then fast forward 10 years and suddenly you are telling the story at a dinner table, complete with ridiculous sound effects and perfectly timed dramatic pauses. And a laugh that ends in a head shake like, still can't believe I survived my own decisions. Some scars, it turns out, comes with a punchline that takes a decade to truly land. The pain was real, the fear was real, but so was the healing. Humor doesn't erase what hurt, but it gently loosens its grip. It gives you your power back. I know someone who got a scar trying to prove very confidently that they could jump a fence instead of walking 20 extra feet to the gate. They were young, athletic, and deeply allergic to patience. One moment they were airborne, feeling unstoppable. The next moment, they were tangled, bleeding, and very aware that gravity had opinions about their abilities. At the time, it felt humiliating. Stitches, a limp, a bruised ego that hurt worse than the leg. Years later, that scar is less about the injury and more about the lesson. Sometimes the long way around is the smart way. And sometimes scars are just life's way of saying, maybe don't audition for the Olympics without warming up. Scars are proof, plain and simple, that we lived. Not cautiously, not perfectly, but fully and bravely. They mean you showed up when you didn't even know how things would turn out. You tried even when the outcome was uncertain. You loved even when it cost you something deep. And you risked embarrassment, faced failure, endured heartbreak, and even made the occasional poor life choice that still makes you chuckle. You healed, even if the healing left a crooked line or a wonderfully awkward story. And sometimes you healed with a scar that now makes you laugh out loud because it reminds you how human you really are. Every single scar is a quiet reminder that life touched you, sometimes gently, like a soft breeze, and sometimes like it ran full speed into you without a single warning. And yet, here you are, still standing, still laughing, still bravely telling the story. And if you can laugh at a scar now, it means it no longer owns you. It means the pain did not get the final word. So maybe the question isn't how do we get rid of our scars, but how do we truly listen to them without letting them run the whole show? How do we honor what they taught us without staying stuck in this lesson? Scars are chapters, not the whole book. They are markers along the winding road, not the final destination. So if you've traveled this map of scars on your body or in your mind during this episode with the rest of us, if a moment resonated or a memory stirred, then please take a moment to like and share this episode with others. The Acceptance Project podcast is continuing to grow in leaps and bounds, and it's because people like you are taking the time to help us spread the message of acceptance. Your support is noticed, and it's deeply, deeply appreciated. And just remember, your scars are not signs of weakness. They are evidence of endurance. They are the handwriting of a life that dared to be lived. So until next time, take care of yourself and take care of others. The Acceptance Project is a production of Bridging Success, LLC. To learn more about the podcast and our work, please visit bridgingsuccess.com. This podcast and its content are for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. I'm Dr. Bryan Gross, but I'm not a licensed therapist. The topics and opinions shared by me and any guests are our own and should not replace professional or medical advice. If you are seeking mental health support, medical guidance, or help with personal matters, please reach out to a licensed professional who can provide the individual support you need.